Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Mehta, CEO of Gainsight, and I want to welcome you back to Net Retention TV, where I bring CEOs, investors, thought leaders to talk about what's become one of the most important metrics in SaaS and cloud, which is net dollar retention. So with me today, I'm super excited to welcome Yamini Rangan, who's currently the CEO of Hubspot and actually has an incredible career story before that. Welcome, Yamini.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick. I'm such a huge fan of you, of Gainsight and net retention. So I'm really excited for the conversation.
I think we might be pretty nerdy if we're both fans of net retention, but that's what it is, right? SaaS is for the nerdy. So I'm really excited. We're going to talk a lot about your career, which I think is really an interesting kind of arc of how customer success has evolved and net retention has become more strategic. We're going to talk about net retention as a company-wide priority and who owns the different parts of it, how you think about that at HubSpot. We're going to talk about products role in net retention. But next week is Thanksgiving. So I'd love to start with a icebreaker question, which is in preparation for Thanksgiving, what's one thing you're grateful for this year?
Oh, lot of good things. I mean, this year has been just a phenomenal. I will say I'm really deeply grateful for our customers' trust in us. It's been one of those years where customers have relied more on technology, and everyone talks about digital transformation. But for us, it comes down to every single customer, and I'm really grateful for the trust that they have in HubSpot.
I love that. What a great way to start. And the HubSpot, I think it uniquely is a company that sits in the kind of front lines of businesses around the world, helping them run their marketing, their sales, their service. But your story, I think, ties so well to this audience because a lot of people watching are in customer success or some related profession. And if you check out Yamini's LinkedIn profile, she's worked at some great companies like, for example, Workday, Dropbox, and now HubSpot, but moved in from business operations into being a chief customer officer at Dropbox, then chief customer officer at HubSpot, and then now CEO. So I'd love to have you take the audience through your career story and kind of how you went from CCO to CEO.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I said that at the beginning, I've been a huge fan of you and have learned a lot through what you write and you put out in podcasts for a while. My career trajectory, started as an engineer, then moved into sales, then moved into customer success, and customer-centered executive. And I'll say that I was in India. Engineering was the thing to do back then, and I started my career there. I can't code to save my life, but I'll tell you what engineering taught me is just first principles, thinking about problems and solving problems from first principles. And I think it helps me even today. And then I spent a decade in value sales across Siebel and SAP. Mm-hmm. And that was interesting, Nick, because it gave me like a front seat perspective of how customers make decisions. Every day we're talking to customers, we're talking to them about CRM, we're talking to them about technology adoption, and then learned a lot in terms of how they make decisions, what trends were emerging, and how we needed to really make customers successful. And I'd say the last decade has been just interesting. You mentioned Workday and Dropbox. I was just fortunate enough to work in both of those organizations when they were going through a hyperscaling phase. But SaaS changed everything. It was no longer about winning a customer. It was all about making the customer successful. And that's what I kind of learned from both of those organizations, being in customer-centric roles. And I'm really delighted to be at HubSpot. I joined last year, and I'm fortunate to be leading the company right now. And our mantra and everything that we focus on is really solving for the customer and delighting our customers. So that's been my journey so far.
I love that. And you came in as the chief customer officer, I think, right? Which included, I believe, the whole kind of revenue functions, including sales and customer success. Tell us a little bit why you called that the chief customer officer. Some people call that chief revenue officer. How do you think about that?
Yeah, look, I think, just talking about the trajectory, the decade or, maybe 2 decades ago, it was about winning the customer. And as we think about what has happened in the last 15 years or so, Nick, and you're really aware of this, it's much more about how do you make a customer successful. And so HubSpot has been going through a transformation from what we call a funnel vision to a flywheel vision. And the funnel vision is what we have been talking about, which is you have the top of the funnel, which marketing drives, and then you have your sales go and try and win. And when you win a customer, you hit a gong, you ring a bell, and you're successful. And but that's the start of the journey for the customer. It's no longer enough to ring a bell and claim victory, because that's really the start of the journey. And so at HubSpot, we've been talking about why having a flywheel vision is important. And the flywheel really is putting the customer at the center and bringing together teams that can attract, engage, and delight customers. And that happens to be marketing, sales, and customer success, and really focusing on turning customers into delighted advocates for the company. And so we've been talking about the vision for many years. Internally, HubSpot wanted to go to this flywheel model. I started talking to Brian Halligan, who is our co-founder. You know him really well. And we started talking about this vision, and it was very exciting for me to think about bringing all of these teams together and really focusing on delighting our customers, which is why we created the flywheel team. And we call it the flywheel team internally, and that's marketing, sales, customer success, and all of the operations around it. And the question that you asked, Nick, about why do you call it CCO and why not Chief Revenue Officer? Some companies call it COO, some companies call it Chief Business Officer. Language matters. You know this, and you've been a big proponent of the language. And so language matters, and all of these teams should be focused on the customer. And that's why, it is a flywheel team. It's not, a go-to-market team. And that's why the role needs to be a chief customer officer role that really focuses on the customer, so that it sends a clear message on what is important. Revenue is important, it's a byproduct, but I think customers are even more critical, which is why I've been a big proponent of the chief customer officer and the language around that.
I love that. It's so inspiring, because I think there are many people in the customer success field where the company hasn't yet adopted this amazing flywheel model, and where they think that, okay, customer success, that's just a kind of tucked in under sales. You might have seen that in peers companies, right? And they're like, oh yeah, the job is sales, and customer success, that's kind of, assisting sales, right? Yep. Versus the job is the customer flywheel, and we all work around that.
That's exactly right. I will tell you that if you go around to your teams and you ask, hey, what marketing, what's your goal? What's your aspiration? You ask that of sales and your customer success team, and they talk about, I want to drive pipeline, I want to drive ARR growth, I want to drive customer satisfaction. Actually, no. All of these teams should drive customer delight. It doesn't matter which part of the organization you are, you should really be thinking about delighting your customers. And I think that's why it's important to think about all of these functions as one. And then, you mentioned, like, a lot of teams and companies think about customer success as like a tucked in on the side. Yeah. Or sometimes they're like, oh, this year is about customer success. We're going to have like an annual initiative about customer success. And I say that it's not an annual goal. It's not one team's responsibility. It's the entire company's guiding principle of how to delight customers. And it cannot be just an initiative or a goal or a team that's kind of like tucked away. It has to be built into the DNA of your organization for you to be successful now.
I love that, Yamini. And I think that's why I'm so inspired by HubSpot using the term flywheel. For folks that don't know, flywheel as a concept, I think it's obviously the idea of this thing that kind of builds momentum on its own as it spins. And people have used it in the context of business strategy overall, like Jim Collins and others. But I think applying it to the customer journey as a flywheel is brilliant. I think HubSpot's been talking about this, I think, for several years now, right? If I'm not
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly right. It's, you put the customer at the center and you bring their teams around it. But what does it do to your customer? A customer is trying to understand what you're delivering, and then they engage with you, and then they maybe, if we're lucky, purchase, the solution. And then they have to be delighted, and then they have to turn into advocates. When they do turn into advocates, it starts spinning your flywheel. And there is this natural, fuel that you get to spin that flywheel, which is, if it's right for the customer, then it will be right for your company.
Well, it's incredible because, HubSpot is both enabling companies to do that with your technology, but also yourselves run a flywheel internally. And by the way, anyone can check out HubSpot's performance over the last 5 years. It is a flywheel. It's incredible what you all are doing. And within that, one of the questions is, what do you measure? And so we've got kind of churn, which is looking at loss of customers, and then net dollar retention, which includes getting customers to do more. How do you think about those two metrics in running HubSpot?
As I started, I'm the biggest fan of net retention. It's like the single most important metric for a SaaS company. It's literally the most important metric. And I think as an industry, we started caring about churn. We started putting teams responsible for churn, but it's almost like a lagging indicator, right?
Totally.
You don't want just to keep your customers, kind of engaged and not leaving. You actually want delighted customers. You want customers who are using your product every day. You want customers who are deriving more value every single day. And if you so deserve it, then continue to do business with you. And so what's a metric that measures that entire set of, are you keeping your customers happy? Are they getting value from you every single day? Are you converting them into advocates and delighted, customers so that they continue to purchase, and get even more value from you? What's a metric that addresses all of those core questions? It's net retention. And so we've gone through the process of actually really orienting most of our customer-facing organizations around revenue retention or net retention for that exact reason. We had our customer success teams initially focus on churn, and then we've really had them turn their focus and attention to net retention. So today they're all focused on revenue retention and net retention. We've also done a couple of other things. We've had our leadership team within sales also focus on revenue retention. So in a lot of companies, you'll have the sales leaders really focus on ARR or MRR, whatever ACV metric that you have. In our case, we have taken all of our director plus, within the sales organization and have them focus on revenue retention for exactly the same reason. It's not just important for you to sell. You just have to care about whether you're bringing in the right fit customers and those customers actually gain value and they continue to leverage your technology and continue to spend with you. And so that has been, two pretty important shifts. And again, this goes back to getting the entire organization focused on providing delightful experiences so that customers continue to get value.
I love that. That's so cool, because I think sales leadership does have a big part to play here. I think it's really inspiring. So let's talk about the flywheel and kind of each organization in the company in HubSpot and what you think they can do to drive net dollar retention. So I'll start with marketing, then we'll go to sales, then we'll go to kind of onboarding implementation. We'll talk about customer success, and we'll maybe end with product. So let's start with marketing. HubSpot got started in marketing, marketing technology. You do a lot more than that now, but what do marketing teams do that can help drive net retention?
I mean, look, I think it's all right. Like we said, to me, net retention is a company metric.
Yeah.
And customer success is a company focus. And, so all of the teams that you talked about, they have an impact. From a marketing perspective, how does marketing think about customer value? You have different organizations. You have the brand marketing team, you have digital teams, you have product marketing organizations. But if you have them start thinking about communicating customer value, helping customers really understand the value proposition of your solution, and all of the campaigns, all of the work that they do is really driving that engagement usage, as well as the understanding of the clear value proposition you deliver. I think that's how you think about marketing. Now, their everyday metric is not revenue retention, but in terms of what is helping them make decisions is solving for the customer and ensuring that customers have a clear understanding of the value proposition that you're delivering.
That's great. So that's marketing, customer value. And I agree with you. Marketing has to change the way that the language, right? In quarterly business review, it's not just about the number of webinar attendees or the number of MQLs you've generated, but understanding how that drives value. Okay, so that's good. Now you've got a marketing team that's really excited about this. Now you've got a sales team. You've talked about how you can incent them, which is great. But what do you
Yep.
what do you look to from the sales team to drive net retention?
Look, customer value, right? Like one of the things that we do is that we tell our teams it's not important for us to grow, in any way. It's important to get the right fit of customers. So the sales organization is thinking about the right fit customers, and we have incentives, and we have, obviously incentives drive behavior, and so we have incentives within the incentive system to be able to drive that type of behavior. So, they're thinking, one, who is the right fit for our solutions? And we'll be the first ones to tell you, well, this is exactly what our product does and it's capable of doing, and you'll be successful, versus if you're trying to do something else where we may not be the fit. And so I think they think about that fit, which is important. And our sales organization basically carries both the new as well as install-based sales.
Yes.
So think about the built-in incentive for a sales organization, not only to bring the right fit customers, because they know that if you do bring the right fit customers, then next year, the year after, when the customer has gained value and they continue to buy, they're going to, have that same group of customers adopt more of our solutions. And so there is that incentive to bring the right fit customer, drive value, and then continue to sell into the install base. And as I mentioned, from a leadership perspective, we spend a lot of time helping our sales leaders understand our business model. Our business model is not just about bringing in, customers. It is about making customers successful. And so we talk to them about net retention. We talk about customer dollar retention or churn. We talk about the net new ARR that they drive, and helping leaders understand, what the business is supposed to do, which is delight customers, and then making sure that we have incentives in the right places. That all helps.
I love that. That's great. It starts with the right fit, and then you're right. I mean, if salespeople do it right, net retention is the way for them to predictably make their number, because now those customers keep growing. So, okay, so now you've got a customer, and you have a CS team that's working with them, getting them to adopt and get value and all that. Obviously, CS is front and center in net retention, but what do you look to from your CS team to really drive net retention?
I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? So now that you have a customer, what happens? The CS organization broadly is responsible for making sure that we are onboarding the customers in the right way. There are what we call as value-based outcomes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or when we win a customer, and we're fortunate enough to win a customer, the most important thing for us is to understand what are the outcomes that they're driving, and then how do we make sure that there is a clear handoff between the sales organization, customer organization, so that one, you can onboard the customers really well, and then continue to make sure that they are actively engaged, and we are helping them solve business problems. So the customer success model, which you've talked about for years, is that an advisor to the customer and a trusted advisor over a period of time. They're helping them onboard. They're helping them solve engagement issues on an ongoing basis, and then helping them to think about where they can get additional value. And so, as I mentioned, a few years ago, we had the whole customer success organization focus on churn. And then we said, what, really the value is net retention. So we've made that shift to have the organization's primary metric be revenue retention, which means onboarding is important, usage is important, engagement is important, ongoing value is important. And so that's how the customer success organization is aligned, and they're deeply, aligned with the sales organization, and so there's always, this question of like, who carries the quota and who does, the way we've done it is the customer success organization is really focused on the customer. They're focused on the value, they're focused on making sure that, the customers are getting, and so the sales organization is responsible for the number. And so we'll make sure that there is ongoing communication and handoffs, but the customer success team is focused on the customer and delighting the customer, and if that happens, then the whole flywheel continues to spin.
I love that. That's so great. Now, if you folks listening in, if you counted the number of times you said value in this conversation, it's a lot, and I think there's intentionality to it. Marketing is driving, understanding the value. Sales is determining if the customer can achieve the value. Are they the right fit? Customer success is driving those value-based outcomes.
Yep.
Obviously, a big part of driving value is the product. So what's product's role in net retention and driving value?
Look, it's, how do you get to a revenue retention, net retention if your product is delivering, right? And
Right.
you just have to have products that deeply care about solving customers' pain points and challenges, and doing that in a manner that is exceptionally additive to the customer's organization. One of the most fun things that I love about HubSpot is that the product organization actually carries NPS, the Net Promoter Score. Now, you and I have been in the industry for a long time. I think there's always this friction between, the product organization, the go-to-market organization on like, I'm going to build the products, and then no, I carry the NPS, and this is what you need to do. And I think the most brilliant part here is that the product organization carries the Net Promoter Score goal. And what that has done is it has made customer delight and success like front and center for all executives within HubSpot and all teams within HubSpot. The first email of every week at HubSpot is the NPS email.
Wow.
Literally, this goes out to all of the leaders across the organization, and it talks about what are the promoters saying, what are the passive saying, what are the detractors saying, and there is an instant loop to the product organization on areas where we have a lot of passives, areas where we have a lot of detractors, and they care about it and they act on it, and then you can see that flywheel of the feedback also taking into effect. And I think that works really well within HubSpot. And you need to create the right incentives, you need to drive the right behavior, and you need to have the right feedback loops for customer success to be part of the DNA of the company. And I think product organization cares deeply about our customers and solving for our customers.
I love that. And I think that's a good segue to one of my last questions, which is, it feels like with HubSpot, not only have you been able to delight your customers in one product area, but over time, HubSpot's expanded its scope in terms of functions that you serve and value propositions you deliver. And I don't think you could have done that without delighting customers, because you don't have permission to go do new things if you haven't solved the core. So how does the customer success and kind of net retention, all this, fuel innovation in a company? Does it empower innovation? Does it allow innovation? How do you think about that?
I love that question. I think we earn the right to have our customers do business with us every single day, right? We earn the right. It's not a given. It's not just because we win them once, it means that they're going to continue to be. And so we need to earn the right to kind of, continuously, get our customers to trust us and then continue to be our customers. And so you're hitting on something that is really important, which is how do you earn the right, with your customers, is by driving innovation. It is by solving the problems that they have today and thinking deeply about the problems that are going to show up in the next few years for customers. You got to do both of them, right? Sometimes you know exactly what's staring at you, based on the feedback, the kinds of challenges that your customers are facing that you need to solve today. But then you need to be in their shoes, think for them, think deliberately about the kinds of issues that they're going to run into. And so for us, it has been, as you mentioned, we've kind of gone from being a marketing app to a CRM suite to a CRM platform. And we've gone through the transformation primarily by, having this mentality of solving for the customer and thinking about where customers are seeing the biggest challenges today and where are they going to see it in the next few years, and driving innovation around it. It really comes down to that. For most of our, SaaS businesses and businesses that we are in, you have to have amazingly innovative products, and you have to have just incredible ways of delighting the customer. How you build product and how you sell are the unique advantages that companies have. And for us, by thinking about how we build and how we sell and putting the customer, front and center in both of those, deliberate choices that we make, we try to drive that flywheel across the organization.
I love that. And it's funny because just to summarize what I'm taking away for the audience, I think the flywheel concept is showing up at multiple levels in this conversation. HubSpot's technology enables your customers to deliver a flywheel for their customers. you yourselves practice this flywheel model, which optimizes your net retention. But then the flywheel not only is spitting off net retention, but it's spitting off innovation opportunity, which then lets you grow net retention even more and help your customers. It's all, I don't know what diagram, it's kind of, we've created a very complicated, it's like the movie Inception. It's all like building on itself here, but it's pretty awesome to just see. And if anyone's wondering proof, check out HubSpot's performance, and not just the performance of the business, which is frankly unquestionable, but also just the values and culture that you have as a company. Really, for me, and I think 10,000 plus entrepreneurs out there, we all look up to HubSpot as a true role model of which company we'd all love to build one day. So, but just to close out, I'll share something, fun fact. 5-6 years ago, I was at one of our first Pulse conferences, and I said on stage, the CEOs of tomorrow are going to be the CCOs of today, or something to that effect. And I'll admit, I just said that because it sounded like a good tweet, and it was a good tweet. But the truth is, like, you're living that. And I think for everyone watching, you truly are an inspiration, Yamini, just like kind of coming from this customer-centric lens, being a CEO, running a company that is truly customer-centric. So no pressure. We're all kind of following you. And
thank you. You predicted the future. I couldn't have said it, but I'll tell you that, customer, company, team, self. That's kind of the model that, we've operated in. And that's certainly the model that I've followed. And it's almost always like customer, company, team, self. And if you do that, then great things happen. So thank you for the trust. Thank you for having me. And thank you for inspiring. You certainly have been an inspiration, continue to be the inspiration for a lot of folks in CS. And I've certainly learned a ton from you. So thank you for this conversation.
This has been so fun. Well, I'm so grateful going into Thanksgiving, grateful to know you, and grateful for what you're all doing at HubSpot. Thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll see you all soon. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thanks a lot. Bye.